Why they want him dead, Ibrahim Traoré. In this small, motherless country, a 35-year-old soldier, Ibrahim Traoré, is leading a revolt that is anything but ordinary. This isn't your typical coup d'etat, funded by IMF loans or applauded in Paris. No, it's a rebellion against decades of invisible chains, neo-colonialism disguised as aid and freedom. In just a few short months, Traoré has done what few leaders dare to do. He expelled the French army, tore up military agreements that were over 60 years old, pointed fingers at Western financiers bleeding his country dry, and denounced a global system that keeps Africa on its knees. To his supporters, he is a new Thomas Sankara, the anti-imperialist hero assassinated in 1987. To his enemies, he is a threat, a rebellious captain with a pan-African dream too large for their comfort. His name echoes through the dusty streets of the Sahel, sung by the youth who dream of a free future, feared by those pulling strings in the shadows. But who really is this hybrid of courage and fire? And why is the West trembling in the face of this man? To understand, you must dive into the history of a country that has seen more revolution than any other in Africa. Burkina Faso, once called Upper Volta, was renamed by Sankara, the land of upright people. Yet since his murder, orchestrated with foreign complicity, the country has been looted, manipulated, and thrown into chaos. In 10 years, 5 presidents, repeated coups, and jihadist insurgents have taken control of vast territories, despite billions in Western aid. Out of this disorder emerged Traoré, a captain trained at the University of Ouagadougou, a seasoned artilleryman who fought in the north where villages burned under terrorist attacks, abandoned by a weak state, and French allies more focused on protecting gold mines. Traoré was not the kind to obey without question. He asked uncomfortable questions. Why, despite Western funds, was the country losing ground to jihadists? Why were French troops stationed for decades, letting civilians die? Why were 10% of the population, nearly 2 million people, fleeing their homes? And why did the country's underground riches, like gold, end up in the vaults of Canadian, British, or French companies, while Burkina lacked water and schools? No sacrifice will be too great to lift this country from the abyss, he declared. His September 2022 coup wasn't just a regime change. It was a declaration of war against a rotten system. Traoré overthrew Paul-Henri Damiba, a colonel accused of being too close to France, too timid to cut colonial ties. Without a political party or financial elites behind him, Traoré relied on an ancient force, Burkinabe patriotism, and the spirit of Sankara. Like his idol, he called on youth to rise up, not with guns, but with ideas, tools, and a vision of a free Burkina Faso. What frightens the West are not his speeches, but his actions. In 4 months, he expelled French troops, ended Operation Sabre, an anti-terrorist force based near Ouagadougou, and canceled a 1960 agreement that allowed France to intervene freely in Burkina Faso's affairs, a colonial relic still active in several Francophone countries. He shut down French state media outlets like RFI and France 24, accusing them of spreading lies to destabilize the country. He banned French NGOs, suspected of espionage under the cover of humanitarian aid. And he launched an audit of mining contracts, revealing that only 4.2% of the 70 tons of gold produced annually benefited the nation. The rest, enriching foreign companies, leaving crumbs for the population. These decisions turned Traoré into public enemy number 1 for the West. European and American media quickly labeled him junta leader, Putin puppet, extremist captain, but they forget to say why he's there. Trust in pro-Western governments collapsed after years of corruption, insecurity, and exploitation. Instead of explaining the context, they caricature him as another African dictator. When his government suspended media outlets like the BBC and The Guardian, accused of biased reporting, the West screamed censorship. But in a country where information can be a weapon, Traoré views these media as tools of manipulation. In 2024, after a Human Rights Watch report accused the Burkinabe army of massacres, The government blocked several news sites, denouncing a coordinated campaign to smear its forces. To Burkinabe people, Traoré is a shield against internal chaos and external pressure. More than 50,000 civilians volunteered to join the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, a citizen militia ready to defend the country. This popular support is no coincidence. Traoré embodies a dream, an Africa that doesn't beg, doesn't bow, and decides for itself. But this dream is under threat. In December 2023, rumors of a coup attempt against Traoré circulated. Never confirmed, but followed by increased American satellite surveillance over Ouagadougou. The presidential guard tripled, growing from 800 to 2,500 men. We're not naive. We know what happened to Sankara, an officer. Recently, American General Michael Langley accused Traoré of diverting international aid for his own security, an old tactic to justify sanctions or interventions. Burkina Faso responded with a public audit denying the allegations. Traoré is not fighting alone. With Mali and Niger, he formed the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, a mutual defense pact to expel foreign armies and strengthen regional autonomy. Suspended from ECOWAS under the pretext of restoring democracy, these countries enjoy strong public support in their quest for independence. What Traoré is proposing is a Sankarist vision: food self-sufficiency, military security, and an end to economic dependence. For decades, the West prospered on a dependent Africa. Traoré's Burkina threatens that model, inspiring other nations to follow suit. This revolution is not without risk. Popular media, which I won't name, funded by Western interests, portray him as an autocrat. But controlling information is controlling perception. And Traoré knows it. If he is seen as a liberator, he gains allies. If seen as a tyrant, he becomes a target. His war is as much on the battlefield as it is in the minds of the people. By defying the world order, Ibrahim Traoré is not just changing Burkina Faso. He's reigniting a pan-African fire, a hope that Africa can think for itself, govern itself, define itself. The question is, will the West let that fire spread? Or will it do everything to extinguish it, as it did with Sankara? One thing is certain: like a lion of the Sahel, Traoré will not back down. Traoré's revolution is a geopolitical earthquake. Historically, Africa has been a playground for colonial and neo-colonial powers that supported docile regimes to secure their interests: gold, uranium, cocoa. Sankara paid with his life in 1987 for challenging this order. Traoré is following in his footsteps, but in a more connected world where information spreads fast. His actions, like expelling French troops, strike at the heart of the neo-colonial system, which relies on economic and military dependence. The West is responding with a media war, because losing Burkina Faso risks triggering a domino effect in the Sahel and beyond. Look at Mali and Niger, following the same path. What makes Traoré unique is his popular support. More than 50,000 civilians have volunteered. This is a citizen army, not a corrupt elite, but danger looms. Rumors of coups and American accusations echo tactics used against leaders like Lumumba or Gaddafi. The parallel with Sankara is chilling. A charismatic anti-imperialist leader becomes a target as soon as he threatens foreign profits. Traoré is playing a risky game, but his bet is clear: a sovereign Africa is worth any sacrifice. This story forces us to reflect. What if, instead of fearing this Africa, the West actually listened to it? Comment if you think there will ever be a better relationship between New Africa and former colonial powers. Share this video and subscribe for more content.